We go back now to our reporter, Christina Gonzalez, on the ground there in front of the Federal Roybal building in downtown Los Angeles, where we are told that protesters are now trying to get into that building. Christina, tell us what's going on.
Okay, I gotta be careful here. What we have is a group of protesters who try to enter the building. They are actually using the garbage, and you see that we're getting pelted with gas pellets. That is tear gas. Okay, so what we had was a crowd of about 20 people who tried to enter the building a few minutes ago. And they are now backing up because we have been, excuse me, we have tear gas being thrown at us. At this point, we do not see anybody in terms of LAPD or law enforcement near us, but I have a feeling this is going to happen at some point soon. The crowd is going back in. Those are actually photographers, because you can see that they actually broke. There was a fence there, and they actually went in. The moment they tried to go in, they were met by the officers that you see with the tear gas. So the crowd is backing up, and they're beginning to throw things at the officers. And of course, in the middle of this, we have somebody in a dinosaur suit. But the crowd has backed off a little bit, and we have about 30, 40 people around us, and they're beginning to try to move back in. Some of them and throw some of the cones at the officers. So it's a very volatile situation.
Appreciate you trying to cover this story. We hear the coughing there. I'm guessing that is due to the tear gas. Please do what you need to do to be safe as we watch this picture here. You can see that.
We're okay. I mean,
okay?
so far
right,
we're okay. Let me show you something, because they're coming back. They're coming back in. Look at the guy on the left. They are actually creating a barricade of sorts to try to block the entrance. Again, this is the entrance of the Metropolitan building, of the Metropolitan Holding Facility. And what they're trying to do is to block it so that the vehicles that were taking some of those who were detained could not come out. So here they're coming back in. I don't think this crowd is going to let go of the situation.
So, Christina, you're saying they don't want them to be transported, if I'm understanding you correctly, right?
That's right.
Okay.
They don't want the people who were here, who were being, you saw earlier, we showed some of the white vans where they were transporting some of the people who had been detained in the courtrooms to places like Texas, and some of the places where there was room. Now, the crowd is, you see the crowd that we're showing you? There's about 30 people that are remaining. The main 200, 300, 400 people, they have moved down the street. What remains here is about 50 people who are what course can call hardcore. And they're saying that they want to make a stand. They believe that they do not want people being transported.
Christina,
and, you see them painting graffiti. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As we're watching this here, we do know that you have protesters, and sometimes you have outside agitators who come in with their own cause, their own purpose, their own mission to be there. As you're looking at the crowd here, do you feel that it's largely protesters against ICE and the raids and the deportations?
So I think the majority of the protests had that in mind. Definitely people upset. I don't know, can I talk to you a minute? Are you okay? All right. Thank you. Some people don't want to talk, but I'm going to try to find somebody to get a sense as to why they're saying and how. Can I talk to you a second? Okay. You know, to your point, there are people here who have their own agendas, and their agendas are anger. They're angry about what's going on and all kinds of other issues.
You know,
we
saw that in 2020.
What we're hearing from the people here is that what they saw today tipped them over the top.
Yeah. Christina, we saw that in 2020, right, where some outside agitators came in and got involved in some of the protests. I'm reading something that was sent to me by the Chief of Police's office, Jim McDonnell. The LAPD will continue to have a visible presence in all of our communities to ensure public safety. We will not assist or participate in any sort of mass deportations, nor will the LAPD try to determine an individual's immigration status. That's from the Chief of Police's office. So I need to know if you can tell us who lobbed the tear gas that's causing you to cough.
The tear gas came from the officers inside the parking lot, and that is what they use to push the crowd back, because the crowd was pushing inside into the parking lot. They actually got through that initial gate, and they started breaking down the area. So at that point, that is when they came out and they lobbed, they used, what you saw is tear gas. I have not seen tear gas coming from the crowd. I have seen some bottles and some stuff, but nothing like tear gas. I will say that some people came very prepared with their goggles and their and just ready for what is happening. So they probably had a sense that it would and that they were going to do this. You saw the people blocking the entrance. They were very adamant that they wanted to make a very strong point, and this is a strong point to them.
As we're watching the crowd there.
You can see over here. Let me show you what's going on here. Thank you so much. They're actually handing us some masks. Thank you so much. Let me get one for my cameraman. Thank you so much. We do appreciate that. Be safe. Thank you. So now we have some masks, which might help. And you can see, let me show you that as we move around, because I want to give you a sense of the back of the crowd. You were asking about the different groups and so forth. The crowd definitely at this location has diminished. Now, you see the flashing lights at the end of the street there. There's LAPD beginning to kind of block the street and just get people away from this area, because this is now escalating into a whole different situation. And we'll see where it goes. But at this point, let me see if excuse me, can I talk to you a second?
Oh, no, sorry.
Oh, you're okay? All right, thank you. I'm trying to be, let me see what happened to this person. Are you guys okay?
Yes, we're fine.
Okay, all right, that's okay. Let's go this way, it's all right, it's okay. Some of the people actually got hurt with the tear gas. I mean, it can be, if you get hit directly on, and some people were in front of that line with the tear gas, and right before you came live to us, you could see it happening. It can be really beyond scary. It can do some damage, and some people are actually saying that they were hurt. The crowd, again, about 20 people. We are on Alameda in front of the Metropolitan Detention Center, where we have what is really, in essence, it's funny, look at the trains over here, because the trains are continuing to run past this. So if you're in the metro and you ride past this, understand what you're driving past. But so far, this has remained very much not into the streets as taking over the freeway or the train or anything like that at this point. What you're looking at is in front of the detention center, and I get a sense that people are probably going to stay here for
Christina,
now.
if I may,
we'll keep you.
If I may get back to that earlier point, I know you talked about the tear gas being lobbed from inside of the federal building there on their premises. So is it your sense then that it would be the feds that launched the tear gas, not the LAPD?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
The building, the people inside this building, keep in mind, this is a Metropolitan Holding Facility. Okay, this is what is behind the Roybal building. People are being held here, aside from immigration, for all kinds of things. But this is where they were processing out the people who...
Okay.
But volatile situation.
Christina, right there in the thick of it, obviously you can see that people are there trying to get a message across that perhaps might not be appropriate for all audiences, and we want to watch the language as well. So we're taking a live shot there right now that is overhead. You can see, as Christina mentioned, that it is a much smaller... Okay, look at that shot right there. You have federal officers there.
They were lobbying the gas room.
We're going to go back and forth to Christina Gonzalez, but that is a show there of force and a protection for the building there. in that shot there.
At the federal level, and I was just saying a few moments ago that the LAPD is not part of this. They are acting as crowd control. My understanding through a source that other departments have come in, other facets of the LAPD are on standby, but so far they have not moved on this. And we know that the majority of these protesters left the area. They were marching. At one point, our reporter on the ground, Christina Gonzalez, told us there were 500 protesters. She said that they were very peaceful. So these are the ones who are left behind, Christine. And this looks to be fewer than 100 people, but they are certainly more animated. And some of the language, obviously, is not something that we can have on our air here because it's just not appropriate to families.
Right, but you can see from that wide shot there, from that aerial shot, that you have a lot of media there on the ground. We have, you know, the stations like Fox 11, as well as your citizen journalists, and those who are just documenting with their cell phone, I'm sure. But the large crowd is not there taking part in this in front of that detention center. As you might imagine, I can't imagine federal authorities allowing them to breach that building. Who knows what's behind or inside the building there, but you can imagine that being a federal building for one, and also a detention center, like a perhaps concept of a temporary jail kind of thing.
Right.
They're not going to allow protesters to breach that building. So they already had the tear gas come out. Our own reporter who was right there, you heard her coughing, and she's trying to cover the story there. So as you can see, the bulk of the protest crowd really wants no part of this. They want their message heard, they want to make a statement, but they don't want to be part of this. And they're either keeping their distance or have moved on with the greater protest, which had hundreds of people.
And it's my understanding now that these federal agents are asking for backup from the LAPD. So eventually we probably will see black and whites from the Central Division, which would be very close to here as well. We also have the main headquarters that are at Main and First that I was talking about earlier. So eventually we will see black and whites. They would be there for crowd control. As we just mentioned, the vast majority of these protesters have moved on. We didn't see any laws being broken earlier, but now these are the stragglers, if you will, and they were making some aggressive moves, Christine, and we saw that they were blocking off the areas, presumably because they don't want the people who were taken inside to be able to leave that building, be transported to wherever they would be transported to. And
let us also note, because Laura, you and I have been covering decades of news here in Los Angeles, we have seen many of occasions where you have outside people coming in with their own mission or taking advantage of the opportunity to make some kind of statement or to create an unrest, escalate the unrest here. All right, back live with our picture there on the ground. Again, our reporter Christina Gonzalez is right there in the thick of it. We are watching here as it seems to be fairly calm at this moment. Christina?
Yes, if you can hear us, thank you for letting me know. Okay, so it is, we made peace with that group and they understand that we're doing our thing, they're doing theirs. And what is happening right now is that they're attempting again. Now, I believe we have the video from when this whole thing began, when they tried to get in. If we can roll to that, because any of what happened, you had a part of the crowd that literally tried to enter the parking lot of the detention center. You can hear me asking the booth to come to us, because at that point we were trying to show you what was going on. It got to be a very volatile situation, because as they tried to break in and they got closer and closer, what you saw from inside was the systems that were guarding, coming out and throwing, using the gas to push the people back. So what they're trying to do is stop the people that have been coming in and getting the people who were detained outside. But at this point, it's a volatile situation. It really is. LAPD.
Those are all lies. You're better reported than that. Don't be like that. No seas así.
So as we are watching this play out here, we saw much more of a presence of authorities in that entranceway. You saw the one guy in our shot that Christina had the video who had fired the tear gas there to back that crowd up. But then you also now, as you look in, there are several more officers again I can't imagine they're going to let that crowd breach that building in any way, shape, or form. We know LAPD has come into question about their response earlier in the day with the ICE raids. I heard the police chief, Jim McDonald, talking about that, saying they would have to protect anybody as that is their job. And so I'm guessing they might actually have to come in to protect the building as well, is my guess. That I can't imagine this crowd is going to be allowed to push forward. Again, this is not the bulk of the protesters that Christina had been marching with and covering. This is a smaller group trying to make a stand here.
Yes, we were reporting earlier with Christina about 500 in total when this mushroomed earlier this afternoon. Now we seem to have, Christine, less than 100 people who are still here. This is the more aggressive group, if you will, and there's a lot of, bad language and things being sprayed on the side of the building, attempting to get into the federal building there, or at least try to block the exit so that people who were taken inside earlier cannot be transported to the next location. And that seems to be the bone of contention right now at 6:28 on this Friday, when just a lot of protests started, and it began when these ICE raids began around Southern California. Of course, LA is a sanctuary city. It is an overly prevalent Latino community here in Southern California, but the city of LA, over 50% Hispanic, so a lot of people feel a connection to this story, whether they've been here maybe for generations or if they're newly arrived. There's a strong sense of connection to this story of this being an immigrant city. So we're watching it played out on the streets of LA today. You were mentioning, Christine, earlier when you covered the news conference, 7 different raids occurred, but the 2 that got the most attention were in the Garment District and then also at the Home Depot near downtown LA. It's an area that I used to go to all the time to buy things, and I would see the day workers out in front, trying to get people to hire them for the day, and it's something that we see here in Southern California, people trying to make a living. And of course, as the Trump administration came in and said, look, if you don't have papers, you have to leave. And so this was a show that we saw here today, a show of force.
We had that news conference where they talked about, the protesters talked about what they witnessed today in LA, and they talked about these 7 operations, they said, happening by federal agents. Laura, you mentioned one Home Depot. They also mentioned a second Home Depot where you talked about those day laborers who wait for work. And also they mentioned a donut shop, a labor center, a garment factory called Ambiance, and another location. And we heard one person talk about how their family had been here for years and their loved one had been detained. And this came as a surprise to the mayor of Los Angeles. LAPD apparently was not aware that these federal raids were going to be happening today. And right now you're still looking at this live shot over the Federal Detention Center, where really it's been a story, a tale of 2 different stories, where you have those who were caught up in the raids at those 7 locations, and also those who are showing up for their immigration appointments and having been detained here at the federal building. So we've seen quite a day here when it comes to the Trump administration enacting their policy about immigration, and the federal government stepping in to make quite the statement in the city of Los Angeles, which we know votes Democratic en masse. California votes Democratic en masse. And you have to wonder, Laura, how much this is of the Trump administration trying to make a statement towards or against Los Angeles, or confirming their policy in California, even though we have sanctuary city status.
Of course, and if you want to make a statement, where are you going to do it? You're going to do it in LA and you're going to do it in New York, the 2 biggest cities in the country, both heavily Democratic. We have a statement right now from U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley of the Central District of California. Federal agents were executing a lawful judicial warrant at an LA work site this morning when David Huerta, that is the president of that agency, deliberately obstructed their access by blocking their vehicle. He was arrested for interfering with federal officers and will face arraignment in federal court on Monday. Let me be clear, it goes on to say, I don't care who you are. If you impede federal agents, you will be arrested and prosecuted. No one has the right to assault, obstruct, or interfere with federal authorities carrying out their duties.
Our coverage is going to continue right here on Fox 11, the Fox 11 News at 6. We'll be right back.